Where I thought the 52 Weeks of Why adventure was going to be interesting when I first started, um, I had no idea that coronavirus and COVID-19 would have such an impact, not only on our day-to-day lives, but also on the way that the interviews have gone as I've progressed through the weeks, and interviews of people learning about their why, and the angle that so many people have approached me about and said, going through these challenging times, it was really powerful to hear this message or that message. And it became less necessarily about the why and a little bit more about that message of hope or relatability or connection, because of the scenario that we find all of ourselves in. My guest today, man, just somebody that I met and we just hit it off, right? We just had this, if you've ever met somebody and the moment you meet them, you're like, this is my people, right? And we hung out immediately and our wives got along immediately. And we just had a connection, and it's been a very short period of time, about a year now, that we've known each other, but we've done such a good job of just keeping in touch and random text messages and voicemails and emails and just saying hey and checking in. And I haven't interviewed yet anybody from anywhere in the Boston area, and so I had to have like my token Boston buddy here on the call as well. We'll get into that in just a minute, though.
You said it wrong. You got to say Boston.
Boston. All right, I'll say Boston the rest of the time. How about that? Before we roll, have a quick quote that is another Jim Rohn quote. If you've watched these, I've got quite a few of these. He is a wealth of quotes. His was, don't see how many decisions you can get out of, see how many you can get into. That's where the adventure lies. Don't ask for security, ask for adventure. There's so many people that I've talked to in this particular realm of my life about difficult decisions that they've had to make. And in retrospect, looking back at those people and those tough decisions, that's where their why was formulated. In those times of challenge and adventure and difficult decision, sprung out this establishment of who they are and what they stand for and what their why is. So my guest today is Mike Dunsky. Mike is a good friend, also a fellow employee of Fairway Independent Mortgage. Mike, as we just learned, is a native of Boston and has lived there his whole life now. Mike, what were you going to say? I hear it coming out of you. What's up?
No, you're doing good because you're one of the wicked smart kids.
Just like me, long-term relationship, married for a decade, has kind of a Brady Bunch family, right? 2 and 2, all of which are adults. So where I'm at the early end of the spectrum on raising kids, he's at the other end of the spectrum where they're all adults, and now it's him and his wife getting to go do things. Well, sort of do things in today's world and have fun. Been in the mortgage business for a long time, since the late 80s. Been with the company I work for, Fairway, for just over a year and a half. And wife came out of the mortgage business as well and is an entrepreneur. You can tell it when you meet her that she has this entrepreneurial spirit. Definitely a success in that realm. Mike, first, thank you for being here. I appreciate your time.
No, thank you. Thanks for having me.
So when you began thinking about, because we've tried to connect here to discuss our why a few different times and our schedules just didn't line up. Did you find that maybe between the first time we set our appointment and when we actually connected today that your thoughts about your why had changed, or were you like, I knew exactly what it was then and here it is now and I'm going to say the same thing, or was there a little bit of reflection on it in the meantime?
Oh God! When you first asked me to do it, honestly, I was petrified. I didn't know my why. I know what's important to me, and over the years, as you grow and mature, you find different things that are more important. So years ago, probably 15 years or so, I created a bucket list, and I found it about 3 months ago. And Joanne and I were looking it over again, and man, I would scratch off probably 80% of what was on that bucket list, because what I loved and what I wanted out of life back then was way different than what I love and wanted out of life right now, and what was important to me. But in the same token, I feel like maybe I got a little bit more grounded, kids, raising the kids, and going through life with with your life partner and just your family. Everything changes, and as your perspective changes too as you go through certain experiences. And as you mentioned before, no sailor knows how to sail in calm seas, right? They need a storm, and people's true colors come out. You learn a lot about yourselves, other people, good, bad, or ugly. And over the past month or so, we've been introduced to quite a storm, which has changed my perspective even more. So did I come into this knowing my why? No, but I have a feeling I know what it is. I just haven't really articulated it.
Yeah, I think that's important for people who have watched all the episodes leading up to this and a couple that I have coming up, that we've had some of these individuals who are so powerful, and their why has been their why either since they were very young and they set the bar very high in that regard, or they've been able to articulate that they've had a dozen whys and they can talk about all 12 of those whys in such a clear and concise way. And they're amazing people, but also sometimes a little hard to relate to in that regard for people who may struggle with the why and trying to figure out what it is. But before we get into that, I want to ask you, when we talk about the why, you brought up the bucket list. I understand that it's new and recent in your mind because you just found it. How long ago did you make it?
About 15 years ago.
Yeah, cool. So it really is a point of introspection where you're looking back at who you were when you wrote that list. And you've been married to Joe for 10 years, so it was before you got married. And yeah, so when you looked back at that bucket list, was there a point where, since it's recently and since you and I've been discussing about this, was there a point where you're like, that might be my why, or was the bucket list just getting the wheels turning to establish what you think your why is?
I think it was an exercise. So I'd been going through coaching, and we did a lot of exercises, about what drives you, what's really meaningful to you. And this is one of the things I just decided to do one day. And when I wrote it out initially, I put 100 bullet points on there, and I filled up about 75 of them, and I left 25 open intentionally because I knew that as I got older, there were things that I wanted to add to this that I didn't know what they were yet. So I intentionally left a block open that I was going to fill in someday. And when I look back at that, when I found it, I mean, I was laughing because I had some things on there that mean absolutely nothing to me right now. Some were completely materialistic. Some were just, I wanted to because I wanted to, with nothing behind it. Um, but man, that's changed from, driving a Ferrari someday to walking my daughter down the aisle. I mean, it changes, everything changes, perspective changes. Not that the ladder wasn't on there first, but you get my point. It's a different perspective on what's important to me and what I want to get out of life.
This is the boat of life swinging through different waters, and the winds of life blowing you on different shores. I think this is just inevitable, right? It happens. Priorities change, and it doesn't have to be just when you get older. It could be 30 days. I mean, even like you said, even in the last 30 days, we've seen changes that may have people reflecting a little bit more about what's important to them. So without further ado, let's get into it. I'd love to hear it. Tell us your why.
You know what I care about? My beautiful wife, all four of our kids. I care about their, obviously now this health, safety, and security is on my mind. So you can't help but have that on your mind. I've always been, this is interesting too, since we've had to be kind of sheltered in physically from socializing. A lot's come to mind regarding my philanthropic activities. I've been involved with the Make-A-Wish Foundation since 1996. Been an active supporter of a group called Respond. which it's a group out of Boston. They help victims of domestic violence. Um, Worked in charitable efforts with my synagogue, and that's been super important to me. I made the Make-A-Wish piece and the Respond piece part of my business practice to give back to them. When all this came down, I'm thinking, how are they going to survive right now with, the economic turmoil going on? Who's going to be helping them, and still wanting to do my part? But so me being, recognizing that I'm thinking about them leads me to believe, okay, the philanthropic piece of me, that's important to me. That's part of my why. I want to take care of my kids and my family. I want to give my kids a better life than I had. I want to be able to take care of my wife the way that she needs to be taken care of, just with emotional support. And I want to be able to take care of my family, and I want to be able to take care of these other parts of my life that are important too, like the Make-A-Wish and like the Respond and other groups that need support from outside. So I think a lot of that giving back, my community has given me so much. They've given me a life that I can really achieve those things. And I want to be able to give back to my community because of the opportunities they've given me.
Man, your why really hits home with me. This is why we got along from day one when we met, right? I want to make sure I'm grasping it right, though. I want to repeat some words that I heard and make sure that I'm hearing it right. So I heard family. I heard giving back and philanthropy, and it sounded like you hinted at a little bit of volunteerism, more than philanthropy, actual. Since we haven't been able to leave our house, and that boots on the ground attitude. I mean, are you? Is it face showing right up there when they need it for volunteers, or is it just a concern about the financials and making, wanting to reach out and make sure that the places where you're giving back are going to be okay, or maybe you need to do more, or a
Yeah,
little bit of both?
yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. It's not just one thing, and to each separate group, there's different ways that you can help out more. And now more than ever, people need help. They need a shoulder to cry on, and they can't do that right now. I mean, physically, they need a shoulder to cry on. Unfortunately, we had 2 weeks ago, a neighbor's husband passed away, and she couldn't grieve and mourn with her family and friends. It was very, very emotional and difficult. We know about some of the people at Fairway and the trials that they're going through with loved ones either passing away or becoming ill. And the hardest part for them is, the hardest part for us watching is not being able to help maybe in the way that we can or are typically used to helping. So I guess I'm feeling that about the organizations that I support. How can I do a better job, and how can I do more right now? That make sense?
Yeah, no, there's a term that comes to mind. I don't know if it's the right one or not, but it's kind of a bleeding heart, right? There are people that are known as having a bleeding heart, somebody that really just genuinely cares about other people, whether you know them or not, whether they're personal friends or interacting with you on a daily basis or not. If you see them going through hardship and hard times, you just want to help, right? And I think, did I sum that up right?
Yeah, you did. Better than me.
So when you go back, if we go back to when you were in high school or in college, I think you've already said this pretty clearly, but I just want to make sure that this why was different back then, or do you think at its core the why was there, but maybe just not executed in the same way that it is now?
No, I don't know what it was, but my experience has definitely changed what I do and who I am. I think all of it, I mean, that's a generalized statement, but I went to high school. I had no idea what I was doing. I managed to graduate high school. Um, I went to college because that's what you did. You went to college, and I found this little artsy, crunchy granola college in the middle of Ohio that had a great, like a co-op program. So I would go to school for 6 months and then I would go work 6 months. So very non-traditional, but after 4 years of doing that, I gained so much experience in various forms of business and the travel industry. Worked in accounting departments, worked in marketing departments. So I was not directed. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I got an economics and business background in college, and then I got shoved into the real world, and I still didn't know what I wanted to do. And how this all got started was because of a stereo. Believe it or not, a friend of mine was working for a mortgage company, and I went out and bought a stereo on credit, and I didn't have a job, and then the bill came and I had to pay it. She said, come work with us, you can be a processor. And that's how I got into mortgage banking, because I had that stereo bill I had to pay. I was so lost back then. I had no idea what I was going to do. I didn't have any direction. I got experiences, and I was torn between trying this and trying that. And this mortgage thing kind of fell in my lap. Sure, I'll go make a paycheck. I didn't even know there was a T in mortgage at the time. And I started processing loans, but through the experience I got when I was in college and working while I was in high school and college and moving on, I kind of dug it. I fell into it. But all those experiences shaped what was, again, behind my why, shaped what was important to me and gave me direction. And I realized that this job allows me to help people as an originator. And so maybe that's where it's all come out, is I get to help somebody on a day-to-day basis. I get to help this single mom who just got divorced get her into a home for her and her kids. I get to help this immigrant who just came over from a foreign country, just starting up here with their green card or on a visa. I help to get them, help them fulfill the dream of owning a home. We get to help. And so maybe that's how part of me is giving back, is it's kind of bled into being a loan officer.
So I think you're right. I think there are a lot of jobs that are very thankless.
Agreed.
You show up, you do your work, you get your paycheck, you go home. There's not any happy ending at the end of the tunnel or at the end of the process or the day even. And we're very fortunate to be in a job that has every single person we interact with has this moment of joy and happiness at owning their new home, right? And it's a very fulfilling career in that regard. And there's a lot of fulfillment in the help that you're giving to people, right? Because you are truly giving people things that will change their life. Was there a point in that trajectory where you were kind of going through and floundering, and you got in the mortgage business and you were processing and then underwriting and a loan officer? Was there a point where like the light went on and you're like, this is it, this changes everything? Was there a person? Was there an interaction, or?
Yeah. There was a defining moment. I was processing loans, and I was able to underwrite loans only to deny them, my fourth year into processing. And I was processing for this one loan officer, and she closed about 70 million that year. So she made about $500,000, and I was on my $29,500 a year salary. And she gave me my Christmas bonus. She gave me a check for $150. So I got that check, and I marched into my manager's office, and I said, dude, we have to talk. I'm going on the road. I'm going to sell. I'm going to be an originator. No, Mike, you can't. Processors make lousy originators. And I was too dumb to know I couldn't do it. So I just said, I'm going to do it anyways. And that was my defining moment. I wanted the paycheck too. I was grinding it out. I had an IBM Selectric typewriter on my desk. I was typing applications in triplicate, using corrected tape and whiteout. And I knew there was more for me out there. And I liked the processing, but I love the idea of changing my day-to-day, every day being a new day and nothing the same. I didn't have a house. I didn't have a spouse or significant other at the time. I didn't have kids. I had zero responsibilities except the rent check. I borrowed $1,000 from my mother to go buy a laptop. I paid her back in a couple of months, but I needed to try it. I needed to try it, and you know what? Again, too stupid to know that I couldn't do it, and it's been originating ever since. So that was my defining moment.
I had something similar when I think I was 20, and I was pretty irresponsible in my late teens and just kind of gallivanted around the country, literally. And I found myself in Austin, Texas, couch surfing, as I will affectionately call it. Just didn't really have a house, just staying on random friends' couches, having fun, right? And when you're 20, you can do things like that. And one day I woke up and I realized that everybody around me was doing the best that they could with what life had to offer them, whatever it was, whether it was working at a gas station, or it was working at a hospital, or it was working at a car wash, or working at a dentist office. These people had trajectories of life and paths, and I could look around me and go, I didn't have it. Right, I didn't have one. I had no idea what I was doing or where I was going, and I knew I was very fortunate this happened to me at 20. because there's so many people that this doesn't happen to until they're in their 30s,
Right.
where this light goes on. And you're like, this is it. I'm done. I've had enough fun. It's time to get serious. It's time to get my life into an order of operations, that I have a path that I'm going down. And of course, it came out of this complete chaos. Didn't even have a home lifestyle that I found myself in. But same thing, right? Just found that one thing that said, no more, right? No more. I'm not going to settle for where I am. I'm going to go do it. And like I love how you said that, because I didn't know any better, right? We had no idea that I could fail or was going to fail. Here it is, right? Let's go. So tell me the why with your family and with your philanthropy. Is there a part of a morning routine for you where these two things are in, right? Are they a part of your every morning? Are they a part of your every night? Kind of tell me how these things work into your day and give you the energy for the day.
We all have different seasons, and our kids now, we have adult children now. So it's different now than it was, let's say, when they were your kids' age, when they were 3 and 5 and 12. And so obviously routines, everything changed. We're pretty much empty nesters right now. So I reserve my after work time for family. And that used to be with all the kids. And now, it still is in a way. We stay close as far as being connected and talking every day and, texting and whatnot. So we stay super close there. But it's really my time for Joanne. Joanne and I, I'm glad we had some time to, I guess, prepare for this stage when we became empty nesters, because you hear about the parents, the kids go off to school and then they can't stand each other. We're very fortunate. We have a relationship that's pretty open, in the sense that we can really tell each other what's going on, how we're feeling, what we want to do, and we love the same things. We don't like everything the same. We have problems just like everybody else, but I try my best. I'm not always successful, but I try my best to leave work at work. I don't even take my laptop home most nights. I'll bring it home on the weekends. Do we have to make calls and talk to people in the evening sometimes? Yes, but I generally leave that time for family time. And as of late, we got into a much better routine, just with being kind of stuck in the house or at the office, just not being able to socialize. Every night I come home from the office, because I do still come in here. No one else is here. But we'll take a walk, or we'll take a drive for a couple hours, and we won't be on our phones. We'll leave the phones off. We'll turn them over and just be non-responsive, just to clear our minds and just reconnect after the day. And I think it's more important now than ever before to really do that, because you got one family. You got to take care of your family and your loved ones. And so my why is just staying connected and helping them, emotional support. I mean, this is super challenging. Some days I wake up in the middle of the night sometimes freaking out about what's going on right now with the world, because if you look at it as a whole, it's overwhelming. If you look at it as, okay, you could just take this piece by piece, take it through lunch, take it through dinner, take it to the next morning, then bite it off in bits and pieces. You can relate better. You can get through this better. So I need her for emotional support as much as she needs me for the emotional support. And it's just important now, more so than ever, to just be there for the loved ones. Um, it's a crazy life right now, but it's helping me understand myself a little bit better, and maybe allowing me to give a little bit more.
What's cool about everything that you just said is this aspect of what's important to you, and dedicating time to it, and the importance of the time that you're giving it. I think when I was younger, I may have given verbally the things that I thought were important to me. But when I looked at how much time I was actually giving to them,
Yeah.
it may not have been they may not have been in line with one another. Yeah, there wasn't a very good balance between the two. And to hear you say that this is your why, and this is what motivates you and what's important to you, and also that you're making sure that you're giving a commitment of time, and not distracted time, not partial attention time, but actual full on committed time, is important. That was a lesson for me that was hard to learn, right? That I could say what was important to me till I was blue in the face, but if I'm not doing it, if I'm not dedicating time to it, it doesn't mean anything. Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
No, we've all been there. That balance thing is so important. And you found a groove. Once you figured it out, you figured out what you need to do. And listen, we don't want to lose a deal. We're competitive by nature. We don't want to lose a deal. But I can't be on the phone and giving my family my attention at the same time. It doesn't work that way. And am I always great at it? No, but I really do try, and I have to set those boundaries. And I set the boundaries. I break them every now and then. We're only human. But I think that in general, we come at our business and our life with a feeling of, or a mentality of abundance as opposed to scarcity. And there's so much more that opens up as a result of that. It's almost like clearing the mind a little bit. When you're clear-headed, you can think better, be more creative, and you can do the same thing with work. You can do the same thing with the relationships you have, and that really helps you kind of be a little bit more humble inside, knowing that I don't need this person. I don't need to chase this person tonight. I can go ahead and I can forget about that until the morning. I can be clear. I can be more in depth in my relationships and family with my parents, and I think we could all use more of that now. Now, so more than ever, I suppose. Just getting grounded again.
Yeah, I'm going to go a little longer than I would normally because you hit on something that I use this term a lot called ping ponging, where I just feel like all of us every day are just getting hit from one end of the table to the other, and then on one end of the table to the other, and we're just like, we almost feel like we're not in control. We're the ball, right? We're just getting smacked from one end of the table to the other, and when you're in that mode, this is why I started studying Stoicism. This is why I started reading Seneca and Marcus Aurelius and these guys, because they taught you to have this foundation and this core that you will not shift from, that is who you are, that are the values that you represent. And that ping-ponging, that hitting back and forth, causes you to act in a way that isn't consistent with who you are.
Yeah.
If you have a belief that you're a certain way and you find yourself not acting that way, it's usually because of the situation that you're in, right? And if you can figure out, every time I'm in this situation, man, I always mess it up, then hey, maybe you shouldn't put yourself in that situation anymore, and you might not mess it up anymore, right? And this is like relationship, what you just said, relationship 101, right? When you're with your wife, be with your wife. If you find yourselves in a little bit of an argument with your wife repeatedly, maybe the situation is that this is in your hand and you may not be aware. All you're thinking of is the fight and the whatever it is. But that's the situational awareness is so important to when you're acting in a manner that's not consistent with who you are, right? Mm-hmm. And if you're able to ground yourself, as you said, and put yourself only in positions where you can act in a way that's consistent with who you want to be, life is so much better. Life is so much more in control. Even when there's all these uncontrollable things going on around us, and there are, just understanding that you can be in control of what little pieces you can control are so important. And I've done this question with so many people who've been on the podcast before, and it's kind of morbid, right? How do you know at the end of your days that your why has been fulfilled? And I think for you and I, one way that I would word this is, you're never going to look back and wish you had spent more time on your phone. You're never going to look back and wish that you had spent more time at the office. Yeah. Right? You're always going to look back and assess how much time you gave to the things that are important to you. And if you can look back and say, I did the best I could with the time that I was given to give it to the people who are important to me or the endeavors that are important to me, it's a win. Man, until we have talked today, I knew we had a connection, but I didn't feel it until now, because we're truly focused on our family. We believe in supporting the community that has supported us and helped us to have the living that we have. And we do our best to help those who are around us, not just in our job, helping people buy houses, but also immediate neighbors and friends and family and extended family. And really cool, man. Really cool. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
We're really lucky. Thanks for having me. So, and listen, stay well, stay healthy, stay safe. Give my best to your bride and the kids.
I will do.